Good morning, everybody. My name is Nick Fundhiller. I'm the owner and president of Interstate Clearing and Construction. We are a full services civil contractor based out of Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. We travel throughout the greater Midwest for site preparation projects, renewable energy projects, any sort of utility project. And our clients are anybody from government agencies like the DOT to general contractors, utility companies, and solar developers. And welcome to the Safe Harbor 101, we'll call it a master class. So today we're going to talk about the investment tax credit, kind of what it means and how we can achieve that in 2026 with limited time remaining. We'll go over the overview. What is the term safe harbor? It's kind of a buzzword right now, and I know there's different interpretations. Qualification methods, practical steps, and some risks and best practices. So just to kind of get a gauge of the room, who do we have from, are there any EPC contractors in the room? Okay, nice to meet you. Any solar developers in the room? Even better. How about solar owners in the room? Okay, got some owner operators. All right, cool. Well, just an FYI, I'm not a tax professional. I've done a lot of research and I work in the space with a lot of different qualified individuals. So if you have further questions after this, please feel free to reach out. I have several business cards. I'd love to introduce myself and meet you. So the investment tax credit was extended in 2022 under the Inflation Reduction Act. And what that does is it can provide up to a 30% base credit on all of your qualified project costs, equipment, installation, labor, things of that nature. There are adders for certain specifications of projects like domestic content, certain communities, and so forth. So it's important to note that you know, the 30% base, I'll get into this further too. You can only accept that once the project is in place. So we'll kind of keep that in mind as we have our conversation is, if we go and get our project safe harbor this year, that's great, but don't put the 30% credit in this year, in this tax bracket for this year as a part of your financing costs. It's not going to work until your project is online, starting to depreciate and is in a good working condition. Some critical updates from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Projects must be placed in service by December 31st of 2027 to qualify for some of these tax credits. However, if we begin construction by July 4th of 2026, we can be grandfathered in. This is great. However, the IRS notices do tighten the rules for continuous effort. Think of this as a research paper. We got to show our work. Right? We got to document. Where'd you get it from? How'd you do it? And everything else. You got to have a good report to put together. Some of the recent overviews and changes that base ITC, so it gets boosted by 5x. It's a base 6% tax credit. It gets boosted by 5x to the 30% if your project meets the prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements. So it's important that you have a good internal person, a good contractor like Interstate, who understands this, who is a union contractor, who has the apprenticeship ratios, who can report it properly on your certified payroll reports, that you can meet these qualified costs. This is a huge adder you do not want to miss out on. And it's not that difficult to document, but you have to know what you're doing and you have to start day one. The domestic content, that's your 10% credit boost. Buying panels and inverters that are made in the United States. You obviously have to outweigh your cost of foreign components, but if you're looking for an additional 10% credit savings, buy America. I know there's several utilities in our area, Wisconsin area, that have Buy America provisions. It's great to see that, and if we can assist our local manufacturers and producers, we should. Energy communities, another 10% if you place a solar facility in a historically coal-dominant area or a natural gas area, right? Think Wyoming out west, potentially. Maybe adjacent to a new or an existing coal-fired power plant in Wisconsin, or something of that nature. And then, of course, if you can benefit some underserved communities and subscribers, you can get another 10 to 20%. So low income, think rural communities with not a ton of job opportunities. How can we help these communities save on their on their energy costs? Just some updates on the ITC and how they're applied. Like I said before, the credit is only applied when the asset becomes operational and it's intended for its use. You have to use the Form 3468 that year to document that, but that's very critical. If your solar facility is a $10 million construction cost and you can have a 30% deduct on your federal tax liability, that's a $3 million deduction on your tax bill that can really help cash flow some of these projects. Or, as in the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 as well, you can start to monetize some of these credits. So if you put your solar facility into action and you have a $1 million tax credit, you can sell that, because a lot of these smaller companies don't have a huge tax liability, right? $3 million for them, you can't take that all year one. You carry it forward for 22 years, and that $3 million it kind of erodes, right? So if you can take let's say your $1 million tax credit and you put it out to market, and companies like Amazon, some of these very large companies are buying these tax credits from these smaller developers. Now they're not paying you 100% face value. They're paying you anywhere from 75 to 95% of that tax credit. But if you can get the cash tax-free the year it's placed into service, you may be able to do better things with that, reinvest into other properties, other projects, pay down debt, hire employees, so on and so forth. So that's a pretty cool monetization scheme that not many people, I don't know if they're still doing it or not, but it's available and it's out there. Your credits, they can be, you can amend your previous 3 returns and you can carry forward your losses for the next 22 years. So it's really a good way to have a net zero income on a solar property for the duration of almost the life of the asset, right? So very important to know. All right, so what is safe harbor? The buzzword we've been hearing for the last 6 months, years since the One Big Beautiful Bill Act got passed into law. Safe harbor is just the mechanism to lock in your ITC eligibility. All you have to do is prove that you've begun construction by July 4th, 2026, even if your construction takes up to 4 years to complete after that. So we got to make sure that we demonstrate construction has begun, right? Think access roads, think a road approach, think steel piling for some foundation work, some concrete, some erosion control. You got to put a good faith effort forward to demonstrate the work has begun. What this will do is it'll protect you. Oh, is this better? Okay. Oh, very nice. Thank you. So we want to protect against a future policy change, right? Let's get grandfathered in 2026. We have until December 31st, 2030 to complete our project. That's plenty of time to wait for the Wisconsin bills to get passed through for community solar, plenty of time to complete our engineering, order our materials, and complete construction. De-risk your financing, right? Make sure you can lock in this tax credit. You can count on it the day this project is put into service. It helps your pro forma and your cash flow and your ROI in the project. And it allows you to secure more time for subscribers and any community members that want to be a part of the project. Gives you that marketing time and helps you spread the word about the project. So just a brief timeline like we discussed. Now until really July 3rd, 2026, you have to begin construction. You have up until 2030 to complete construction, but you still have to demonstrate continuous efforts. So let's take a look and see what, by continuous efforts, we're meaning engage your vendor agreements with engineering firms for your permitting efforts. If you're waiting for a building permit, if you're waiting for a stormwater permit, make sure you have those contracts locked in, organized, and in a safe folder. So if you ever get a review or an audit, you can say that we started our work in 2026. It took us 2 years to get our building permit because the village meets once a month or once a quarter, right? Those are real issues that we have, and you have to continue to monitor them. And there's no wrongdoing in getting the work started and finishing the rest later. So just some qualification methods for the safe harbor. All projects over 1.5 megawatts must use this. You have to start significant work. Like I said, think roads and foundations. Think prefabricating any skids that you may have. Think ordering components, manufacturing components, anything you can do to document. File your contracts. Track your invoices. Take photo documentation. What we've been doing is we're time stamping our photos, right? There's an application you can download on your iPhone. You can show the work that you've done on site. You can see here we got a road permit from the local community. We installed our culvert. We installed our construction entrance. We mobilized on site. We put in the piling for the rack. We have our erosion control in place. And anything else that makes sense to do while we're on site, we're certainly doing that. But we're obviously not going out and spending a ton of money when the project's not going to be done in 3 years, right? You kind of have to outweigh your risk versus reward there. But you do want to put just enough effort forth to make it look like you're doing what you said you're doing. Start work. Like I said, maintain the records of continuous work, your permit applications, your contracts, purchase orders. This is your research paper from school. Document your work, show your work. All projects under 1.5 megawatts must use this. This is if they incur 5% of the total cost by paying for and taking the property within 3.5 months, these are for the rooftop ones, the smaller jobs, not the bigger community solar sites, but you can use a little bit more to your advantage here than starting the physical work, right? You can have your contracts, start to procure some of your materials. Some of these transformers are 18 months lead time, right? Once again, you got to document. You got to know what you're buying, document your evidence, and secure your ITC credit here. So what are some practical steps for our developers, owners, operators, EPCs in the room here to help your clients be successful with these safe harbor tax credits? Let's review our projects, right? What projects are likely to go? How's the land looking? How's the feasibility with the villages and the local building authorities going? If there's a chance, it might be worth spending the dollars to get the construction started to secure your safe harbor. Create your checklist, right? Contracts, timeline, evidence, logs. Have a document specialist manage this on your behalf. Discuss this with your accounting team to make sure that you're following protocol. Engage in a partner. Bind with an EPC, like Interstate, now and work with your advisors. For some of the community solar specifics, get your enrollments going by the time, get your marketing schemes together and start to sell the projects. And, July 3rd is still a ways out, but it's really not, right? I mean, if you have to go to a village and secure a permit for a construction entrance, that sounds very simple, but some of these villages are part-time employees, right? So you have to meet the road superintendent out here and discuss where you want to put your driveway. Well, then, the township doesn't meet for another month after that. And then they table it for a month. And then the next month you come up and they want one more answer. And it's like, you really got to start now thinking about how you're going to do this and making sure that you're in compliance with some of these local communities. Looking for some of the material ordering, right? If you want to order some of your long lead time materials, get out there, avoid the rush. Let's plan ahead and make it successful. As we discussed previously, evaluate your projects, your size, your cost, your adders. What could the value of your 30% or greater credit be, and how is that going to affect your pro forma and really the feasibility of this project? Let's do that immediately. Let's get a target list of these projects that we want to get done. We want to get safe harbored, and maybe some of them won't go. But if you don't get it safe harbored, you'll never know. And safe harboring doesn't have to cost you $100,000, right? I mean, you can do some of this work for as little as $25,000 to $50,000 a site. And in the grand scheme of things, on an $8, $10, $12 million build, that's probably worth the 30% tax credit you're going to get at the end of this project. Secure your contracts, Q4 2025, early Q1 this year. Execute the work. That's gonna start here pretty soon, and it's got to be 5 to 7%. They're saying so. Although the cost of the safe harbor might be low, you can still order your materials to make up that delta, right? Some of the long lead items. Let's get a purchase order on some of these panels, but maybe we don't take receipt until we have confirmation from our building authorities and other folks. And as always, we have to document. You cannot do this well enough. It doesn't have to be difficult, and you can contract it out to a third party if necessary, but show your work. So some of the risks and best practices we've been seeing out there, a key risk is missing the deadline, right? We got to get this in by July 3rd. And if you're ready, why are we waiting until June 15th to call your contractor to go out there and do this work? Let's get it in now. It's cold. It's not fun to work outside right now, but we can do it. Insufficient evidence, right? You have to prepare for a potential audit. And this could happen just like with your personal tax situation. You got to show them the documentation. In today's digital era, there's really no excuse for not being able to combine your PDFs, put your notes out there, take your timestamp photos, and show what we've done. Obviously some delays in the permitting, in the procurement, typical construction delays, but we can really avoid those if we plan ahead. Some best practices: over-document, use your technology for your tracking, use your AI to give you your checklist, diversify your projects, whether it's a large project, whether it's a 300 megawatt farm for a investor-owned utility, or it's a 5 megawatt farm for a local developer. The credit still applies. So this isn't just for the big guys, it's not just for the small guys, it is for everybody. And everybody should be taking this very seriously and how we can save this and preserve the tax credits. And collaborate. Call your trusted partners, your EPCs, your contractors that are on site. Especially here in Wisconsin, we have such a great variety of local union contractors who can meet all of our prevailing wage requirements, all of the apprenticeship requirements, who know the work and can dispatch resources very quickly to achieve this. Here's a few projects that we've done recently. The one on the top left, that's not a safe harbor job. That's a full build for a community solar site in northern Illinois. On the right-hand side, that is us actually doing some safe harbor work in southern Illinois in December. So we hurried up, excuse me, and we got 5 sites safe harbored in late December for a client throughout the state of Illinois. And you can see they threw in quite a few piles on this project, built the construction entrance, we threw in the erosion control, and we have all these photos time-stamped. We have evidence of our contract with the EPC, and we put together a package for them. They rolled it into their package for their client, and further on up the chain of command. So it was a really good effort from all parties to work together for the documentation, right? We're all there for the same reason. And it's not like they pushed the risk down onto the subcontractor. It was just expected to, obviously perform good work in the field, but give us a good product that shows what you have done, what your costs were, and how we can use this to save our safe harbor tax credits. So, excuse me. That's all I had for now. Is there anybody that has questions or any comments from the room?
Yeah, I have a question about the distinction between the smaller projects and larger projects.
Yep.
We had legal counsel basically tell us that for these smaller projects, to get the 5% safe harbor, if we contracted with an EPC and we made a down payment, 10%, 20%, and we had reasonable expectation that they would achieve that milestone within the, whatever that is, 90, 20 days, something like that, that was safe harbor. It doesn't have to demonstrate construction, it just has to show that whatever the milestone payment was for, was going to get done.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
That is correct. And you're saying the under 1.5 megawatt projects. Correct. That's the distinction between, that's your cut point, right? The larger projects, you have to pass the physical work test. The smaller projects, you have to do exactly what you just mentioned. Show continuous work, bind your contracts, procure your materials. Yep, I would agree.
I noticed you didn't mention any of the fiat restrictions on the expiration date of that tax credit. Isn't there a 2029 deadline as well, depending on how you're handling the sourcing of your materials for your projects?
I'm not too familiar with the fiat aspect of it. So you're saying that the ITC credit would expire in 2029
If you're using the majority of foreign materials.
if you're using foreign materials, yes.
No, I was just asking.
No, I remember reading it and seeing it. I don't procure a lot of materials right now, so I'm not chasing that so much, but it does make sense, right? And that's why they're giving us the domestic content boost too to purchase them. But you are right that I have heard that in a lot of conversations. Yep.
That was dovetail off of that. That was a question that I had. If you've got a multi-year project and the FIAC restriction percentages amp up year on year, right? Like, I understand that you're not directly doing procurement. You're putting stuff in the ground, right? But like, if you've got a 3-year project, you've safe harbored it in 2026, but it's not going to be done until 2029. My concern or my question would be, what's the percentage, what's the fiat percentage, like the material assistance components ratio, that needs to be applied to that job, right? Is it the one in 2029 that's higher, because that's when the project is actually installed, or is it the one that was relevant when you safe harbored the project?
How many other folks in the room are interested in this question? Quite a few? I'm going to show you guys something really cool here. Okay, who here is using artificial intelligence? Come on, I know a lot of us are. I'm a big Grok fan. This is Elon Musk's XAI. You do have to pay for your subscription, but it is a monster of a tool. I mean, this thing has some of the most impressive data. So let's write this question and see what we can come up with. Could you help me paraphrase how you'd like to?
Just put a safe harbor fiat FEOC guidelines or rules.
Now, when you're prompting your artificial intelligence, I'll give you another tip. Don't use it like Google. That's the number one tip they say is you have to prompt it to give you a better, and it's, you can maintain your conversation with AI. I don't know if any of you guys do this or not. There's many nights where I'm sitting on the couch and I'm just having a 3-hour conversation with AI and my wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm learning quite a bit, I'll tell you that.
So there was a section further down, strategic advice, that might be the. Oh, maybe not.
Okay, you want to know specifically the percentage of, the percentage of what you'd have to apply to your project?
There's a material assistance cost ratio, that is a certain percentage this year, and it steps up by certain percentages year on year until 2032, or, in some capacity. And so my question is, if you've got a project that's safe harbored in 2026, completed in 2029, right, it's showing us the steps here, the battery components and such. What's the relevant marker for that project included in 2029?
The relevant what?
Material assistance cost ratio. Right, solar components right now is like 50% in 2026, according to this AI. And then it steps up by 10% year on year, right? So
So
if
your
it's,
question is, is it the year that you started or the year that you finished?
exactly, right.
Which, yeah, set of criteria, and you would think it would be the year that you started, but the IRS guidelines are not out yet, so it's like,
Yeah,
yeah.
and then we have a.
But that would be I
significant
think
impact
that's the
on-
way to ask the question is it for a multi-year project, is it the year the project commences or the year that it is completed?
I think for 2025, it depends on whether you started the project before or after the UPA got signed. So if you started it, if you safe harbor before, FIAP doesn't apply.
Yeah.
If you started after the bill was approved, you're less FIAP.
Right. But then, so in her case, she's got a project that is gonna take 3 years to build. Is it the FIAP in place when she starts building or when she finishes building? And that, like, is a huge material difference and.
I think based on for the safe harbor, and you can see here, you're specifically referring to the 45Y portion of the Inflation Reduction Act, right?
No, I'm 48,
48E?
yes. I'm not talking about production.
That helps. I like how we can narrow down each, that helps a ton. But I've read this in a lot of areas where it says it's applied when it's placed in service.
No, eligibility rules based on the year construction begin, well, it's saying and. Right, so that's not
Super
clarifying.
helpful.
Yeah, so that's a big question that I'm a salesperson at a solar installation company.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing primarily financial safe harboring, right?
Absolutely.
We're not big dogs like y'all.
Sure.
But procurement, because all the stuff that we do in-house, procurement is a big part of our process. And this is one thing that we're really working on because these percentages step and we just have to keep an eye on it for the next 4 years. Because those things change and equipment attestations will change as well. But anyway, we don't have to take any more.
No, that's what this was for. I enjoyed that. I'll do some research here and I'll find you later today.
You one other resource, so I'm with Dane County, and Lawyers for Good Government is this national group, and they've been doing a webinar series on the foreign entities of concern, and they're about to post, like, we're about to share that stuff on our website, so I'm waiting for them to like finish the 3rd webinar, but they did a white paper and they did a couple of webinars, because they're trying to help local governments navigate this, like, for projects we fund. And I just tend to trust how transparently
Yeah.
they lay things out, and they're lawyers, so like, they get paid to read IRS guidelines and stuff. And I mean, some of it isn't set yet, but I think some of this could be addressed there, and I haven't watched the webinars yet. I'm just waiting for them to all be there. It'll be fun, I'm sure. that's like the framework that they're, but it's the same rules.
Nope.
For everybody. It doesn't matter, it just, yeah, definitely.
Another good resource out of the Madison area.
L4, the number 4, sorry.
.com.
No, it's probably .org. Just say L4 elective pay.
There it is. Yeah, there's a good resource. Another really good resource I found in the Dane County area is Baker Tilly, the national accounting firm. They have a lot of energy-specific practices that focus on the 48, 45 credits that were out in 2022. And they have a nationwide group of folks that that can really help dive into this. And oftentimes they're willing to speak for little engagement, you know, and hey, I got a question, and it's good camaraderie there. Oh, he can probably vouch for that. Yeah, absolutely. We're all here for the same reasons, right? We can help each other. Any other questions? Great. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, and feel free to stop by, say hi, and grab a card. And I appreciate it. Enjoy your conference, and we'll see you soon.